Okay, let's kick off. Welcome. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, teacher.
It is a college. It is a college, so yeah. That makes sense. The talk's title is Please Waste My Time. So if that's what we're here for, great. If not, then so great. I'm Qasim. I also go by Q. I'm from Blue Bastion Security. We're a small consulting firm. I run the offensive security team there. And I used to work at Cigna. I ran their pen testing team a while back. Anybody here from healthcare? Got a few? Yeah? Hi. See me afterwards. I've got some stickers for y'all. Healthcare specific stickers. I do some teaching after hours. And we also have a blue team. And as I worked with that blue team, I started thinking about the whole idea of, hey, we went in, we got DA, and we walked away with your credentials, we walked away with your domain admin's password, we walked away with your PHI. It's not a win. It's not what makes a pen tester win. It is the idea of helping them get better next time. So what I've loved lately is I've seen some clients where they've gone from, we got domain admin and patient records in 2 hours first time around. Second time around, 1 week. Third time around, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And then as we start doing some red teaming with them, some stealthy work with them, then we start getting into how do we help you stop us? And if you don't have, let's say, for example, you don't have a lot of money to do things, maybe there's some cheaper, maybe some free things you can do to stop us or to detect us. Or maybe you just want to waste my time. Maybe you just want to write my story for me. I got into your network, and maybe what you want to do is guide me towards wherever you want me, the attacker, to go. Redirect me to something else. So that's what this talk is about. It's not about the greatest, best detections out there. It's more about stuff that I have seen my clients do that has pissed me off. Because I thought I had something really good. I thought I saw Windows Server 2003 and I got really excited about it. I thought I saw some domain admin that had a bad password and I got really excited about it. And in all that excitement, I spent 3 hours, 4 hours, maybe even a day or two. I won't admit to that. Although I just did it on camera, apparently. And then found out that they were actually just deceiving me. They were slowing me down. I almost want to give that client a high five after I cried for a little bit. This is also pretty useful for threat intelligence. Trying to see what the attackers are doing. What are the bad actors doing when they see vulnerabilities? You can sort of design that vulnerable environment for them, and you can try to monitor what they are doing with that vulnerability. It can be useful for you if you are a seasoned pen tester. It can be useful to kind of see what kind of attacks others carry out. Like I learned that 2 days ago that apparently you can run commands from within ftp.exe on Windows. So that's a fun thing to do. If you are a SOC analyst or you want to get into cybersecurity, watching others carry out attacks, watching others do their bad things, that might be a useful thing to do. You can learn from it. The best way to learn, in fact, is just watching somebody do bad things. Learn from that. I heard somebody say the other day, we love being bleeding edge as long as somebody else is bleeding. Same way, you can learn from other people, from their mistakes and from their wins. So before we get into how to waste time, we want to talk about what are the things that make it difficult to secure the enterprise. What makes it so difficult to have good configurations in Windows environment? What are some of the things that us, the attackers, the pen testers, are exploiting every day? And one of the first ones that comes to mind that has always been an easy path to DA, so much so that we make fun of it in pen testing circles, is broadcast multicast name resolution protocols. Quite often, from what I remember, when I went to college one day, many moons ago, When we talked about name resolution, it was you go to the DNS server. The DNS server tells you where that thing is. You're looking for google.com, you're looking for HR share. The DNS server tells you where that share is. But that's not the reality. The other day, I was helping one of my employees with troubleshooting something, and what that something was, he was logged onto a remote access device in the client's environment. And he is seeing the traffic from his Google TV in his home on that remote access device in the client's environment. So we start looking through that. Why is that? How are you seeing it? It makes no sense. I pull up Wireshark on my laptop, and I see traffic from his Google TV in his home. Well, what happens with Windows is when it wants to look for something, when it wants to look for that Google TV, for example, it is sending out a name resolution to everybody in the network. And everybody in every network it knows, meaning VPNs. It's sending out the broadcast multicast traffic, asking for name resolution on the Ethernet adapter, wireless adapter, VMware adapter, the VPN adapter, everything. So that's how we were seeing that traffic, and it's freaking us out. Secondly, whenever we respond to that traffic and we say we are who you're looking for, let's say in this case it's a file share that's being sought after. We respond to that and say, hey, I am who you're looking for. Come and talk to me. In Windows environments, that's going to result in net NTLM authentication. This is going to be a hash exchange. It's going to send me a hash of that user to authenticate. So it's basically saying, hey, I'm the file share. If you want to talk to me, though, you have to authenticate, so give me your hashes. We do this using a tool called Responder. So what you're seeing on the left side is the black screenshot. That is Responder tool. The highlighted gold, yellowish area is the hash. So we're going to take that hash and we're going to start cracking it. This happened, if you look at the top of that screenshot, we're responding to a name resolution request. When it says MDNS, that's multicast domain name server. LMNR is local link multicast name resolution. And what's happening is Windows is sending out that request saying, hey, I'm looking for HR share. In this case, the user mistyped the share name. You don't have to. It could just be a real name. It doesn't matter. We're responding, we're saying, hey, we are here. We are the share you're looking for. Come and talk to us. And we got that user's hash. I'm going to pause and see if there's any questions on this before we move on. Because this is quite often new people. I don't want to drink my coffee. All right, so we talked about broadcast multicast name resolution. It needs a tool. You're going to have a hacker tool installed. But have you tried Outlook? So tracking pixels in emails, we've seen those from marketing companies. They send a tracking pixel, we respond to that, or our Outlook or email client pulls up that pixel, and that's how the marketing company knows that we have opened the email. Well, we were red teaming a client's environment, and they were really good at what they had done. Really good controls, good detection, good response, good configurations, secure hardening, and we were not getting anywhere. It had been 2 weeks. It was, in fact, Friday about 4 p.m. of the second week. We had only 1 hour left in our pen test. And we start talking, and one of the teammates points out, Joe said, do whatever you can. So what is something we can do that we've never done before? So we sent Joe a status email. Said, hey, Joe, he was at point of contact. He was the IT manager, so hence had domain admin. Hey, Joe, we haven't really gotten anywhere yet. We got about 1 hour left, so we're going to try one more thing. If that doesn't work, we'll move on to recording. In that, we have the tracking pixel pointing to a UNC path. The UNC path, the // that IP address is pointing to responder. That is our responder box. And we ended up getting Joe's hash that way. And Joe was very happy about it. He was happy for two reasons. One, his password was really strong, so we could not crack it. And two, hey, we got DA somehow. The way we got DA, I'll talk about it in a minute. The tracking pixel works over public IP addressing also with some caveats. Your client may have port 445 outbound blocked. If they have not, tell them to block it. There's no reason for outbound SMB. Secondly, some ISPs block port 445. There are some ways to do this over WebDAV, which is a bit more complicated, and I have never really gotten to work, but people claim it works. So it may work. Ask ChatGPT. I mean, that's how I do the slides. We got Joe's hash. Joe's password was really strong. We couldn't do anything with that password. We could not crack it. We only had 1 hour left. So we couldn't just wait for a long hash, a long word list, long rule list for 10 hours, 10 days to do that. But their environment had a misconfiguration for, I think it was 2 or 3 boxes. In Windows environments, once you obtain that net NTLM hash we talked about earlier using Responder, you can then take it over to anybody else in the network as long as they are not checking for digital signatures in that traffic. Meaning, you take somebody's badge and you walk over to everybody else and pretend to be them. That is what lack of SMB signing results in. So we are using a tool called NTLM RelayX in here. And this tool is taking the hashes from 1.3. So the host 10.100.1.3, there's a user logged on there named FileMaker. We're taking FileMaker's net NTLM hash, and we're talking to 1.4, 1.5, 1.6, anybody who does not require SMB signing. We have not cracked that hash. We don't know FileMaker's password. We're just taking the authentication packet. We're just taking that authentication hash as is, and now we log on to other boxes as FileMaker. So we did that with Joe, and since Joe had local admin on those 2 boxes, and one of those boxes happened to be Exchange server, that was an easy DA. Okay. What you're seeing towards the end of that screenshot, the second highlighted area, that is SAM hashes. By default, NTLM RelayX will dump SAM hashes. Those are local hashes. We'll talk about some ways to waste my time in those hashes later too. But yeah, that's lack of SMB signing. That's a default in Windows. Windows 11 will start requiring SMB signing. It is still in developer preview. Broadcast multicast name resolution is also a default, which will remain a default. And if you go into group policy and you select turn off multicast name resolution, that only turns off LLMNR. It does not turn off MDNS. It does not turn off MDNS. There's some additional steps you have to do in there for that. So hit me up afterwards if you want to talk about that a bit more. So we had gotten the hashes from a user. We had relayed them across. We got some more hashes. Maybe we cracked the password or not. Next stage generally in our pen test is we have domain user access. Now we want to escalate. One of the ways we'll look for that is Kerberos. So when you got to the conference this morning, you got a badge. This badge gets you entry into this conference. Now you may have some workshops that you may have signed up for. There is a separate sign up usually. Okay? Some conferences will have additional costs for that. Maybe you go to the state fair in Syracuse. You get the admission ticket, but then you need a separate ticket or separate cost for the funnel cake, for the rides, for the Ferris wheel and all that. Similar to that, Kerberos, another authentication mechanism in Windows, works based on tickets. When you log into your network in the morning, you get a TGT, ticket granting ticket. That is your badge. That is your admission ticket. Then you present that TGT to the domain controller and say, hey, I want to access that file share. I want to access this MS SQL server. I want to access LDAP. can you give me a service ticket? There is a ticket specific to a service that you then obtain. That ticket to access services offered by that service is encrypted with that service account's hash. And that process of getting a TGT and then TGS is not malicious. There's nothing wrong with that. You do that all the time in your environment without even knowing. So when we get to domain user access, we go and ask the domain controller, give me service tickets for every single service you have. We then take those service tickets offline and we start cracking them. Earlier when I showed you NetNTLM hashes, those can be cracked, I believe, at about 1 billion-ish guesses per second on a small gaming laptop. These ones, so RC4 ticket, that's on the bottom, that can be cracked a few hundred million guesses per second. The AES one, I think it's only about 130 million guesses, something like that, on my Alienware that we use for work. And I'm not bragging at all, I promise. Well, when you're not working, you can play some games, so that's always fun. So there are multiple ticket types you can offer in your network. You can have RC4 tickets, you can have AES tickets. In the end, domain users can request that service ticket. Any domain user can request that service ticket, and they can then crack that offline to get the password for the service. That's called Kerber roasting. How often do we change service account passwords? Not often at all. I recently Kerber roasted a client where the service account password was set in 2005. Yeah, that was fun times. So, hold on. Start to check. This is 50 minutes, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Hopefully. I have not finished my copy yet, so. All right, so we Kerber roasted and we get a service account password. Service accounts quite often have domain admin. Service accounts quite often have easy to guess passwords. If you need to remember the password of your service account, you're using service accounts wrong. Please, you do not need to know your service account's password. If you remember your service account password, I'd like to give you a free pen test. Or maybe somebody else has already done that. Okay, so that's Kerber roasting. That also makes it difficult in our environments, to secure our environments. Quite often, you don't have a choice. Your vendor requires it. You are, like if you were in hospital, for example, quite a lot of EMRs require this. I used to work at Cerner before I started doing pen testing, and I was doing night shift. So I always only got a call when something bad was happening. Otherwise, it was a very good job. I finished Sopranos, Game of Thrones. Fun times. I learned a lot. There's so much you can learn about pen testing from Game of Thrones. So I get a phone call from a hospital. Hey, we're down. Something bad's happening. Okay, start looking at this. Service account's password has expired. This makes no sense. Well, turns out one of my colleagues, when he configured the EMR for this client, the electronic medical record system, he used his own account as a service account to set this up. Went on vacation. His account had expired, and the hospital was down. That was fun. Another thing we do is pass the hash. So anytime you get local admin on a device, you can dump SAM hashes. These are local hashes on that box for local authentication. Quite often, we're going to be going after the local admin's hash, the administrator user, RID 500, on that box. And that user, if the password is the same across the board, then we just take that hash without even needing to crack it, and we just pass it across the environment. We're just taking that hash, going to everybody else, and logging in as that. Okay? Windows does not use salting for those hashes. The SAM hashes, there's no salting. So the hash for a password is always going to be the same. So this is something we do quite often. If it's a pen test, I'm just going to take that hash and spray it across the whole /24 or /16 even. I'm going to light up that SIM. If I have to be stealthy, if I'm a red teaming this environment, then pass the hash is something I'll do maybe one box at a time. Okay. But this is a pretty common thing. Microsoft patched it, it fixed it, and their fix was you cannot do pass the hash using a local user that is not local admin. Meaning, you can pass the hash for a domain user, you can pass the hash for a domain admin, you can pass the hash for a local admin. Who else do I want? That's it. So that patch was kind of, Okay, another thing we'll do, because nowadays we are seeing labs deployed. Labs is randomizing passwords on every single box. So the local admin password from one box is not the same on the other box. So that hash is no longer going to work. So now we are going after Kerberos tickets. Remember I told you earlier in Kerberos you have two tickets. You have the ticket granting ticket that authenticates you, and then you have the service ticket that authenticates you to a service only. We're going to be going after the ticket granting ticket, TGT. Because if I present that ticket, I can log on as that user anywhere I want. And that ticket is stored in LSASS. LSASS.exe is a process you'll see in Task Manager that handles all authentication and authorization on Windows. So if you dump the memory of that process, you're going to see a lot of credentials in there. Anytime you log on to a device, the credential is stored in there. Okay. Which is why domain admins, please stop logging onto random workstations to install a printer. Don't do that, because you're leaving your credentials behind for me. So we're using a tool called Rubius. And then in the screenshot, it says not Rubius because I'm very creative with names. And I obfuscated it, and I compiled it and ran through Obfuscator again and called it, no, not Rubius. So using not Rubius, on the right side, we are taking the ticket, and on the left side, we are passing it back into the session. Now we can become that user, in this case, DA admin. So this can be done usually in default configurations. I can do this for up to 10 hours. Your tickets by default are sitting in that box and usable for up to 10 hours. So I can grab it, I can go to any other box in the environment, pass that ticket, and I can start using it. I can do this on Linux. Take a ticket from Windows box, go to my Kali Linux box, pass it there, and use it. And my most favorite. We were doing a pen test section. It was just this week. Started writing a report yesterday. And we got access to the IT manager's OneNote. Not only do we know their domain admin password from 6 years ago, and 5 years ago, and 4 years ago, and 3 years ago, and 2 years ago, and this year, we also know his wife's bank account information. So that was interesting to discover that he's storing that in OneNote, and he has that. I was like, dude, come on. Anyway, this is something we find, especially in red teaming, because if I'm red teaming, if I'm being stealthy, and I do not want to raise alarms, but I also want more credentials, I'll pull up File Explorer on a Windows box. I will go to the Network tab, and I'll start looking for file shares. I'll go through those file shares, and I might even just search for the word password. This is something I learned when I was learning to do pen testing 10 years ago, and it's still something I do because it works. We often find something like password.txt or password.xls is my favorite because it will have a field for the URL, field for the username, and the password. Sometimes even security questions are going to be there, so that's very helpful for me. It's because, in my opinion, password managers are difficult to use. Have you tried?
Not password.
Oh, they should have done that.
Yes.
Not password.txt. I did once see something called "Please don't look at this." But I tried getting people onto password managers, and it's just so difficult. They have made security difficult. Try getting your grandma on password manager. Try getting her to use LastPass. Good luck, right? So this is also how we get a lot of passwords. And this has been something where I have also wasted time, and I'll talk about that in a minute. We've talked about all the different ways Active Directory makes it difficult for us to protect the enterprise. Our own practices, our own habits make it difficult for us to protect the enterprise. So now, How do you waste my time? My favorite is honey users. What you're doing in here is you're creating a real user with a real password. Maybe don't make that password too easy, but not too difficult either. So make me spend some time trying to guess that password. And once I do guess that password, I think I've got some access. Well, you should be monitoring the authentication logs and see if that user is authenticating somewhere. You have just discovered it. It's something pretty simple you can do even with Canary tokens nowadays. It could just be a task scheduler, schedule task on a domain controller that checks the authentication log for that user's name and success message, and then just emails you or drops you a note or something like that. If you are requiring password resets for your users, that's in 90 days, 6 months, 1 year, then make sure this user, this honey user, is also getting the password reset. So it looks real. Even have this user log on to a box. Create a honey workstation. Have this user log on to the box. Maybe give this user local admin on that box. Everything is domain joined. Everything is real, but we're monitoring it heavily. It is a dangerous thing to do, so you got to be careful. Or another thing you can do is have the box be domain joined, have the user be domain joined, and then kick them out of the domain. A lot of times I've seen tools like Bloodhound will not fully understand that. A lot of times I've seen our pen testers will not fully understand the difference in that because they still see some remnants on the disk of the username.domain name and they think it's the same user. So you may be able to do this. I personally, because I've got time on my hands, will have a real user and a real workstation that the user logs on to. I will just limit that user's activity afterwards. And I will heavily monitor that user and that workstation and see where they go. This way, once that user starts moving on, you know that they are being, they got caught or compromised, and you have a malicious actor in your environment. How about Honey SPN? So the way we define service accounts for Kerber hosting is they have a service principal name set, SPN. So if you created a service account with a password that is a little difficult, we're taking that ticket offline and cracking it, so maybe make me spend 10 hours on that. If you make that service account juicy enough, I will spend a week on that. Okay? A real threat actor may even spend 6 months on it. So set up some Honey SPNs, some Honey service principal names, service accounts. Give them an RC4 encryption. When you create a user, in the user properties in AD, you have an option. You know where it says unlock account? Similar area. You can say something like uses AES 128 or uses AES 256. Maybe this one doesn't have that check. In addition to having a honeypot service account, another way to detect Kerber roasting is most of the pen testing tools by default request an RC4 ticket. So if all of your service accounts are using AES tickets and somebody requests RC4, you know there's somebody malicious in the environment. Okay. But if you want to waste my time, though, make that password something that's going to take me a long time to guess. Give that user some sort of high privileges in the environment, or at least make it look like it does have that. Like, for example, you could give that user local admin rights on a box that does not exist. Like the box was domain joined and has been shut off, and this user has local admin on it. When I run Bloodhound, it's going to tell me the box exists because it is joined to AD, but the box has been shut down. I'm not going to know that generally because I'm just going to wait till I get this ticket, and then I'm going to try to log on to the box. Just wasting my time. So, honeypot service accounts, a really good way of detecting us, making us waste our time, has happened in the past. Fun times. Another one of the first things we do in networks, especially in Windows networks, is we run Responder to find broadcast multicast name resolution requests. So what if you were sending out those requests intentionally, waiting for somebody to respond? What if you sent that request for a box, a name that should not exist in the network? So nobody should respond to that. But the moment I respond and say, hey, I am that box you're looking for, you know there's somebody malicious in the environment. I was messing around with some Python based on a client's request, and we built a honeypot for this. The tool called NetBase we built. When I say we, it's me and ChatGPT. I think one of us did most of the work. I can't say for sure who. And what this tool is going to do is a PowerShell tool. It's going to send out a request. It's really just PowerShell command. I think it's, what is it? Get AD. Resolve-DNS is the command. So if you do resolve-DNS and you give it some sort of a name, Windows is going to send out broadcast multicast name resolution. Let's start to resolve a name. But so you have to run this small box that does not have broadcast multicast name resolution disabled. And you have it run this script. This script, you can specify which name to look for. My favorite thing in this is you can spew some credentials. You can have it send out some sort of a netNTLM hash. Maybe that's a valid user, maybe it's not. If you require SMB signing everywhere and you make that password very difficult, I'm going to be sitting in there for a week trying to crack that hash. You just wasted my time. You could also use this to direct the attacker towards wherever you want them to go. So maybe you do give them real credentials, and that user has some sort of access on a real box where you want them to go, and you're monitoring to see what tools they're going to run. What activities are they going to carry out? Okay. So that's one of the tools that we've been utilizing in our SOC, and we've had some really good success with it. My pen testers hate it, and we also love it. Canadian tokens. Yes, go ahead.
Is that previous slide, is that based on subnet? Is it within just the subnet?
It's within your broadcast domain, so it may go around subnet too, depending on how you've got your routers and switches. So the broadcast multicast traffic can traverse your routers and switches depending on if you're letting out layer 2 traffic. Okay? So it all depends on your configuration of routers and switches. And I'm saying it like that because I have no idea how networking works. I've not been in networking class forever. But I have seen it come across subnets in my responder, so I know it works, it's just I don't know how. Canadian tokens. This website you should bookmark. If you are going to be using this in your organization, you should pay for their appliance because they do some really good work. So Canary Tokens is going to build canaries for you. It's going to build honeypots for you that you can deploy. For example, you can have it build a PDF document. That PDF document has a tracking pixel in it, so when it gets opened, you're going to get an email saying, hey, this document just got opened from this IP address using this browser. You can do this with a Word doc also. You can have AWS keys. You can have they even give you a, I forget if they do, I think they do scheduled tasks. You can monitor commands run on a box. If you're going to monitor a command that's run on a box to identify bad actors, look for who am I. Every single one of us who did OSCP or CEH or PNPT or whatever, we learned to run who am I the moment we got in a box. That's how you catch us. Look for who am I, and you got us. So, CanadianTokens.org, maybe create a PDF doc that says something like 2024 financial picture. Or it says something like passwords.pdf, passwords.docx, passwords.xls, whatever you think will work, and drop it in your network shares. It's going to help in two ways. One, it's going to help you catch a malicious actor. And two, it's going to tell you who your Snoopy employees are, who your curious employees are. Breaches don't always occur via bad intent. Breaches also occur because somebody got a little too curious. You're in a hospital and you're looking at your kids' medical records. If you're a doctor and you're looking at your neighbor's medical records. I was working with a hospital in Atlanta, and they work with a lot of celebrities. So if a celebrity is having a baby in this hospital, They had a lot of serious monitoring happening on that patient record because people are going to get snoopy. People just get curious. So dropping those PDF files, docx files, may be a good way to find your snoopy, your curious employees, but also a bad actor. Fake password vaults. We're dropping password.txt everywhere. Maybe we drop an actual password.txt with a bad password in it. Maybe you use this to also direct the attacker to wherever you want them to go. You can also do something that, so a while back, I got access to IT's network share, and it had KeyPass database, so the password manager database. It had the password for that KeyPass manager database in a text file next to it, and it also had the installer for KeyPass in it. So that was a fun day. I got access to a lot of passwords. So that got me thinking, what if these passwords were wrong? Or what if these passwords were taking me towards something they wanted me to follow? So you could have your password vault configured in a way, or your OneNote. IT saves stuff in OneNote all day long. Put some passwords in there. Maybe they're real, maybe they're not. Waste my time with that. Okay? Maybe use ChatGPT to write out actual IT documentation that looks real enough. Maybe start drawing some diagrams and put those in there. If you ever did any lab work in college, like 5 years ago, and put that in there, make it look like it's your actual enterprise work. We're going to start reading through that documentation. Nobody reads documentation like a pen tester during a pen test. So, in Empire, PowerShell Empire framework, there is a script called new honey hash. What this script does is uses Win32 API, Windows' own APIs, to inject a fake credential into LSASS. So you could have a fake credential sitting in LSASS and in SAM that when I dump those files, those hashes from those, I get something I think is real, start using it, it doesn't work. There's an easier way to do this without using a script from GitHub. Just create a user and then disable it. When I do the SAM dump, it doesn't tell me if the user is enabled or not. I'm just looking at the output of username, the read, LM hash, and NT hash. So create local user and maybe have it on 4 or 5 different boxes, same password, and just disable that user. Now you have hash sitting in different boxes that one, whenever I dump LSASS or I dump SAM, that's a loud event, you're going to hear about it from your EDR. If you don't hear about it from your EDR, change your EDR. Okay. Even Defender will detect on that now. Secondly, I will be, 1, trying to crack that hash, 2, try to use it. If that hash doesn't work, I'm still going to try to crack it. What I'm hoping for is it will tell me something about your password practices. That if the password in there was Canisius College 123, maybe the new password is 1234. So I'm still going to try to crack that hash, and you still wasted my time. One quick side note on this, one of my favorite ways of dumping LSASS. You tell Windows Diagnostics Utility that lsas.exe process has crashed, and I need diagnostic information for it to be able to troubleshoot it. And Windows Diagnostic Utility will dump LSASS for you. So that doesn't look too malicious. Monitor the use of reg command in your environments. Why is Joe at front desk utilizing reg command? Should not be doing that. But reg command is used quite often by us, reg save HKLM SAM, reg save HKLM system, to dump SAM and LSA credentials. Okay? So monitor the use of that reg command. So that's it. That is the talk. That is how you're going to waste my time. Please do so. We love it when time is wasted. Because if I can show in my pen test report that it took me more time this year to get to where I got to than last year, that's progress. There's always going to be a breach. There will be a breach. It's just a matter of, do you know there's a breach? Okay? There's always going to be a pen test. It's either you paid for the pen test with money, All with your patient records. So utilizing good security hygiene, utilizing some honeypots to waste time, just expand that time that the attacker has to take to get to where they want to get to. And if I can show more time was taken on my end to get to where I got to, you can then go to your board of directors and say, hey, look, we slowed them down. The money you gave us last year, it worked. Now give us $2 million more. We want that brand new SIM. All right, questions?
So how do you balance between wasting time and getting your money's worth on a pen test? Or if the pen tester is going this way, then you still have these vulnerabilities that you were not made aware of because of the doing.
It's a good question. The question is, how do you balance time between you paid the pen tester for 40 hours, but what if they end up spending 10 hours just wasted because of honeypots? Two things. One, the time they wasted on honeypots, you actually did get some money of your work because you just verified your detection and response works. Two, we always like to have, at least it's not common practice everywhere, but I've seen more of this happen lately, open communication with the client. Daily check-ins. Hey, here's where we've gotten to. Also, what we see our clients do, and we ask them to do, especially if we help them set up these honeypots, is if you see us in a honeypot, and this is a pen test, you tell us maybe about an hour later. Tell us 30 minutes later. And send me a screenshot of that detection so I can put that in my report to show a positive measure that you caught it, that you did something. So you can balance it by open communication and let them know. Don't just sit there and wait till the end because, of course, they're going to get money for it. Good question. Yeah.
How often are you actually seeing honey users and honey hashes? Is it more of like one-offs?
It's very few, very rare, unfortunately. Question is, how often am I seeing honey hashes, honey users? So in my pen testing career, I have only seen it maybe 5 times. And organizations are not doing it for multiple reasons. One, they don't know about it. Two, it still does take some time. It may be a free activity that is set up, but it's going to take time to monitor it. You need to have a tool to monitor it. So not as much as I would like to. Hence, please waste my time.
You haven't been in my environment yet.
I don't know if I want to. Yes.
So you mentioned you had put a tracking pixel in an email and got hashed across Outlook. How did that hash go into Outlook? How did you get that hash?
So Outlook is looking to. The question is, how do I get that hash from Outlook? Well, Outlook desktop client is gonna be doing a NetNTLM hash handshake with you because the tracking pixel is from a UNC path, so it's like a file share. It's like Outlook is accessing a file share to access that tracking pixel. And in Windows, whenever you access file shares, you hand over your NetNTLM hash to authenticate to it. Okay? So that's how we get the credential there. Yeah.
Does that pixel have to be legitimate, or will it just try to try to grab it anyway?
It will grab it anyway. In this case, there was nothing on the other end. That's why you see that X and the weird icon. It could just be just a small 1 pixel something. You can do this in Microsoft Word too. In Microsoft Word, you can add ActiveX controls. One of those ActiveX controls is Windows Media Player. So you can add Windows Media Player to Outlook to Microsoft Word, and you can have it access the video to load in the media player from a UNC path. Video responder is running, and you get the hash. Outlook also had a vulnerability recently where it was the ding, the audio that it plays for the calendar invite was loaded from a remote box. So you get the hash that way. I bet there's like 20 other ways to do this. I just don't know about them yet. And I'm sure that's going to be fun when we find out. Any other questions? Yeah.
One question I want to ask, in regards to the Active Directory certificate services, do you see any type of ranking activity in regards to that, and what type of activity do you think about that?
So the question is regarding ADCS, Active Directory Certificate Services. Do we see any red teaming against that, and what kind of detection response in that? We are seeing red teaming activity against it, and especially with Spectre Ops' certified. think it was like, what, 3-4 years ago now? All these EC vulnerabilities I talked about. So we are seeing more hacking activity from there. What we are seeing also is pen testers don't go after it because they have 20 other things they could do for us. So the activity against ADCS and reckoning activity we generally only see in mature environments. Detection response to that would be maybe you don't need ADCS in the environment and you spin it up anyway and see who interacts with it. Maybe you do need ADCS, but you are not needing any sort of net NTLM authentication against it. So you still spin up web enrollment and you monitor who uses it. Maybe you give. So one of the vulnerabilities that Spectrops talked about in that was, my voice really echoes over here, and I'm way away from the camera. So one of the activities I talked about was you've got a user able to request a certificate for domain admin as a subject alternative name. Maybe you make a specific user vulnerable to that, and then you monitor activity of that user. So yeah, you can do that. Good question. What else?
What's your opinion as far as pen testing? Where do you have an internal pen test from third party? Where do you put them on your network? You put them in the data center, or do you put them in the workstation stuff?
So question is, where do you put a pen tester in your environment? In a data center, user workstation environment, servers environment? I think it depends on what you're trying to do. If it's your very first time, I would put them in the user workstation environment. Because quite often, more common than not, you're getting popped via phishing. So it's going to be a user that gets popped, user workstation. Maybe you start from there. And then see if they can get to your servers. If there's segmentation, does that work or not? Maybe next time you put them in the servers environment. And one thing I would suggest is don't do the same thing every year. Modify it. Do something different. Quite often we'll start with a complete black box pen test. Next time we'll do with the domain user. Next time maybe with a local admin. Quite often, that's one time. Clients that are already mature, sometimes we'll start with domain admin. What if you got domain admin? What controls do you have in place in the environment to stop domain admins or to slow them down? For example, does the domain admin really need access to your EMR? That should be something that Biomed generally handles, not IT. So do you have controls against that? So modify your approach with the pen testers every year. And if they're like, no, there's only one thing we can do, find somebody else. All right. Thank you, everybody.